Ladies, let me tell you something that might shake you a little, because it goes against everything you were taught about love and connection. The women who stay on a man's mind the most are the ones who think about him the least. And yes, that sounds backwards until you understand the psychology behind it. Most women believe staying on his mind means being everywhere, responding instantly, proving loyalty, proving interest, proving presence. But that's not it. That's how you become background noise instead of a powerful silence he can't ignore. Real presence isn't created through constant availability. It's created through self-possession, self-focus, and a life that demands your attention more than any man ever could. When you are genuinely unavailable to anything that doesn't match your energy, the world starts to reorganize around you. Your absence echoes louder than another woman's constant presence. When you understand this, you stop chasing. Not because you're trying to manipulate the situation, but because you genuinely have somewhere better to be. The first thing every woman needs to understand is that value is not something you convince someone of. Value is something that is felt in your presence and even louder in your absence. A woman who carries value doesn't beg for attention and doesn't compete for validation. Her standards speak for her long before her lips ever do. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And a woman who embodies her true self never has to announce her worth, she lives it. Value is quiet because it rests on self-certainty instead of desperation. It knows recognition will come without demanding it. When you operate from genuine value, you become selective about where your energy goes. You stop offering access to anyone who hasn't earned it. Think about how it feels to be around someone who knows who they are. There's a calm confidence that doesn't have to perform or impress. They're not trying to be chosen. They're simply existing in alignment with themselves, and that alignment is magnetic. When a woman walks through the world with self-respect, dignity, and internal certainty, a man feels it instantly. He feels the difference between someone who needs him and someone who simply enjoys him. He notices that you don't need constant reassurance or emotional oxygen. He sees that your security comes from within, not from his approval. That realization plants something in his mind that he cannot shake. Because emotional independence is rare, and rarity creates unforgettable impact. Value also means understanding that your time and energy are limited resources. And when you treat them that way, other people adjust their behavior accordingly. You're not available every moment he calls. You're responsive but not reactive. Open but not exposed. Warm but not clingy. This is not a game. It is a lifestyle rooted in self-respect. When a man realizes access to you is earned, not freely given, he sees you differently. He begins to pay attention to the way you move, the things you love, the world you belong to outside of him. He notices the passion in your voice when you talk about your goals. He sees the discipline you carry when you protect your peace. He wonders how you became that way, what shaped you, and what kind of strength exists beneath your softness. That curiosity keeps you on his mind long after the conversation ends. Because while other women are making themselves constantly available, you are showing him that your life does not revolve around his presence. And that difference rewires attraction on a psychological level. A woman of value knows her boundaries, and she never apologizes for them. She doesn't bend herself into shapes to keep someone comfortable. She knows what she deserves, what she will accept, and what is absolutely non-negotiable. And when those lines are crossed, she doesn't argue, explain, or plead. She simply steps back quietly and powerfully, because she understands that respect is earned through action, not through speeches. That kind of self-respect sends a message louder than any emotional outburst. It tells him she values herself more than she values proximity to him. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Most women unconsciously chase because they fear abandonment more than they honor self-worth. But a woman who has faced her shadow, who has looked into her own wounds and healed them, does not cling. She chooses. When a man meets a woman who has integrated her shadow instead of hiding from it, he feels her depth. Depth is unforgettable because depth is rare. He may meet 100 women who say yes to everything, who bend and break to be liked. But he remembers the one who said no with grace and meant it, because that no communicated something priceless. She would rather lose him than lose herself. Carl Jung wrote about the journey of individuation, the process of becoming whole. A woman who walks that path stands tall in her identity, not molded by approval or rejection. She isn't afraid to walk alone, and a woman who isn't afraid to walk alone is never left behind for long. A man never forgets a woman who chooses herself. Her strength becomes a mirror for his growth. That is why you stay in his mind, not through force, but through the imprint of authenticity. An imprint the unconscious continues to revisit long after she's gone. True value speaks in silence. Its echo lingers. Now let's go deeper into something most people misunderstand completely: warmth. Most women think warmth means being endlessly available, endlessly agreeable, always saying yes. But real warmth isn't about being a light that never turns off. It's about being a flame that burns brightly when it's truly lit, not a torch passed to anyone who reaches for it. Warmth comes from authenticity, not performance. It comes from presence, not proximity. When you're genuinely warm, you're not trying to impress or persuade. You're not shaping yourself into what you think he wants. You're simply showing up as your true self, open but grounded, and that level of authenticity is unforgettable. Warmth isn't about emotional access. It's about emotional intelligence. It's laughing when something is genuinely funny, not forcing a laugh to appear likable. It's speaking truth when something feels off, instead of swallowing discomfort to avoid conflict. It's allowing emotions to exist without letting them rule you. Warmth is strength wrapped in softness, not weakness disguised as kindness. When your warmth is real, people feel safe around you. They feel seen without being judged. They feel understood instead of evaluated. They feel connected instead of analyzed. That safety is what men remember long after they leave your presence. Because emotional safety is one of the rarest experiences. In a world full of emotional defensiveness, a man may forget the words you said or the outfit you wore, but he will never forget how you made him feel like he could exhale around you. Warmth creates emotional imprint, and emotional imprint lasts longer than physical attraction ever will. Warmth doesn't mean you never say no. It doesn't mean you accept poor behavior with a smile. Warmth with no boundaries isn't warmth, it's self-abandonment. Warmth becomes powerful only when held inside a framework of self-respect. Because when you're warm but not naive, open but not exposed, loving but not dependent, you become unforgettable, not because you demanded attention, but because you embodied something rare. Men are not drawn to perfection. They are drawn to authenticity. Authenticity leaves a deeper impression than performance ever could, because authenticity allows real connection to exist. Carl Jung said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Warmth is the catalyst of that transformation. When a man encounters a woman who radiates genuine warmth, he feels something shift inside him. The walls he built without even realizing it begin to soften. He speaks differently. He reveals parts of himself reserved for only the safest spaces. He feels seen instead of evaluated. He feels accepted without needing to posture or pretend. That emotional ease is addictive because it's rare. Most people relate through fear, control, or insecurity. A warm woman doesn't manipulate with silence or punish with distance. She communicates clearly and honestly. She's not afraid to say what's real. She's not afraid to express affection without losing her balance. That balance creates emotional gravity. It pulls without force. It attracts without chasing. It influences without demanding. Warmth also means knowing when to close the door. Not out of punishment, but out of protection. You give generously where energy flows in return. You withdraw gracefully where it does not. You don't fight to prove your worth. You don't beg someone to recognize it. Your warmth becomes a privilege, not a resource handed out freely. And when a man realizes your warmth is intentional, not automatic, he treasures it. Because he sees the difference between a woman who gives to everyone and a woman who gives selectively. You become someone he wonders about, someone he thinks about when he needs peace or grounding. He remembers the softness in your voice when you said something kind. He remembers the calm strength in your silence when something hurt. He remembers the confident light in your eyes when you walked away from disrespect. Warmth is not passive. Warmth has power. Warmth doesn't cling. Warmth invites. Warmth doesn't chase answers. Warmth waits with dignity for truth. Warmth doesn't try to control outcomes. Warmth trusts that what is real doesn't need pressure to survive. And that internal stability creates emotional independence, the greatest attraction of all. Because warmth without emotional independence becomes need. Warmth with emotional independence becomes desire. And desire is what keeps you on his mind long after you stop speaking. When he thinks about you, he doesn't just think of your face or your body. He thinks of how he felt in your presence. He remembers the way time slowed down in conversation with you, the way your authenticity made him feel safe enough to be real. When warmth is combined with strength, it becomes unforgettable. It becomes a benchmark. Every woman who comes after you will be compared to the emotional sanctuary you created. Because once a man experiences true connection, superficial attraction feels empty. That is why real warmth is more powerful than beauty. Beauty may catch his eye, but warmth captures his soul. Now let's take this deeper, the power of building a full life. A life so rich and whole that no relationship becomes your oxygen supply. Because fullness is the magnet that keeps you unforgettable. And emptiness is what makes people cling. A full life means you don't sit waiting for a text to determine your mood. You have passions, purpose, growth, community, and direction. You wake up with goals bigger than who likes you. And that energy radiates through everything you do. When a man sees that your life is already abundant without him, he feels inspired, not responsible. He feels drawn, not obligated. A full life communicates silently. I choose you, but I don't need you to breathe. And that message is irresistible. Because humans are drawn to strength, not dependency. The more you invest in your own life, the more magnetic you become. Not from strategy, but from wholeness. And when you're whole, you stay on his mind without even trying. Because fullness creates intrigue, curiosity, admiration. It makes him wonder about the world that shaped you. It makes him want to be part of it, not the center of it. A full life is the most powerful attraction a woman can have. Because fullness cannot be faked. People can sense when your life is overflowing with purpose and meaning. And they can sense just as clearly when you're using someone to fill a void. When your life is rich with goals, passions, friendships, growth, and adventure, you don't have the time or emotional space to obsess over whether someone is thinking about you. You're too engaged in your own becoming. That fullness radiates through your energy. It makes you glow without needing attention to shine. People are drawn to those who are already complete within themselves. There is nothing more magnetic than a woman who is whole. Most people in relationships are half-empty, searching for someone to pour into them. But when you're already full, you become something different entirely. You become the rare woman who doesn't need someone, but chooses them. And to be chosen by someone who doesn't need you, that is the most powerful bonding force in human connection. When a man sees that you are deeply invested in your own life, the dynamic changes immediately. He realizes he is not the center of your universe, he is a part of it. You stop moving around his schedule, and instead he begins adjusting to yours. Not because you demanded it, but because your time has value and he can feel it. When he texts, sometimes you answer because you're genuinely available. Sometimes you don't because you are genuinely occupied, not pretending to be. That natural unavailability cultivates healthy space. It allows him to feel your absence in a way that generates longing instead of anxiety. Fullness protects you from becoming emotionally impulsive. It shields you from losing yourself in someone too soon. A woman without a full life attaches quickly because she has nothing else to hold on to. A woman with a full life attaches slowly because she has many things that matter. She doesn't crumble when plans change. She doesn't spiral when a text is delayed. She has other sources of joy besides one person. Her emotional foundation isn't built on external attention. Men do not want to be someone's entire world. That kind of dependence feels like pressure, not love. Men want to be a beautiful addition to a world that already exists, not the sole purpose of it. The more you invest in your own life, the more magnetic you become without trying. Because your presence becomes an enhancement, not a rescue mission. And that is unforgettable. Now let's move into something that creates powerful psychological imprint. Unpredictability. not chaos, not inconsistency, true emotional dimensionality that keeps a man captivated. Most people behave in predictable patterns. Once someone knows your reactions, they stop paying attention. Predictability feels safe, but it kills intrigue. Because once someone can fully predict you, they no longer need to study you. Unpredictability is what keeps the mind engaged. The human brain is wired to stay focused on anything it cannot easily define. You become unforgettable when you refuse to fit into a single category, when you are not one-dimensional, but a woman with layers. One moment you are deeply thoughtful and reflective. Another moment you are playful, spontaneous, full of laughter. One moment you're bold and strong. Another you're soft and tender. The most captivating women are paradoxes. They allow themselves to be many things without apology. A man believes he has figured you out, and then he sees another dimension he never expected. He thinks he knows how you'll respond, and you surprise him with clarity and grace instead. That unpredictability is not a performance. It is the natural result of depth. You are not playing games, you simply cannot be reduced to a template. And that complexity keeps his mind returning to you. When a man expects you to react emotionally, and instead you respond with calm, reflection, he notices. When he expects you to chase after him and instead you focus on your life, he pays attention. When he thinks you will wait around and instead you choose something better, his respect sharpens. These shifts disrupt his assumptions and awaken awareness. His brain experiences the shock of unexpected response, and that creates cognitive imprint. The mind remembers what challenges it. Unpredictability also comes from genuine spontaneity, the ability to embrace the moment without losing grounding. You're not rigid or frozen in routine. You allow life to move you when the timing feels right. You choose adventure when adventure calls. You choose stillness when stillness matters. Every time he's with you, he feels something different, something alive. Nothing about your energy feels repetitive or heavy. Routine is the death of emotional excitement. Predictability is the death of psychological attachment. Unpredictability does not mean inconsistency. Consistency is your values, your integrity, your emotional maturity. Unpredictability is simply the refusal to become boring, the refusal to sacrifice depth for predictability. It is the expression of a woman who is too alive to fit into one box, too dynamic to be reduced to a stereotype, and that is unforgettable. Which brings us to something even more powerful than unpredictability, emotional independence, the trait that separates the unforgettable from the replaceable. When you are emotionally independent, you don't depend on someone else to feel secure, loved, or whole. You know how to hold yourself, soothe yourself, and direct your life. You don't need to be validated to believe in your worth. You don't collapse because someone pulls away. You don't react out of panic. You respond out of clarity. When a man pulls back, an emotionally independent woman doesn't chase. She observes and makes decisions. When someone's behavior shifts, she doesn't beg for reassurance. She adjusts her own involvement. When she is disappointed, she doesn't break down. She communicates and chooses what honors her peace. Emotional independence is not coldness. It is emotional self-sufficiency. And there is nothing more attractive than a person who can choose love without needing love for survival. Need suffocates. Desire inspires. A woman who is emotionally independent is steady. She does not create chaos or drama to feel connection. Her stability makes her a partner, not a project. A choice, not a burden. Carl Jung wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." A woman who takes responsibility for herself becomes unstoppable. She's willing to walk away if she must. And paradoxically, that is why no one wants to lose her. Because a woman who can leave at any moment is the hardest woman to forget. Not because she threatens to leave, but because she doesn't fear it. Her presence is a gift. Her absence is a lesson. And every man she loves will feel both. Emotional independence is the foundation that transforms every other quality into true power. Because when you are whole within yourself, love becomes a choice, not a dependency, not a bargaining chip, not a survival strategy. When you are stable in your own identity, you no longer fear losing someone. You fear losing yourself. And when a man realizes that you choose him freely, not out of fear, not out of loneliness, not out of need, he sees the difference. Because to be chosen by a woman who doesn't need you is a privilege, not an obligation. A woman who doesn't need a man to feel complete is the woman he wants most. Because being needed feels like pressure, but being wanted feels like freedom. When you are emotionally independent, you don't try to control outcomes. You allow truth to reveal itself. If someone pulls away, you don't chase. You give space and observe what returns. If someone fails to meet you where you stand, you don't argue. You remove yourself and protect your peace. If someone tries to test your worth, you don't perform. You step firmly into your standards and let your silence speak. And that ability to walk away without chaos or collapse changes everything. Because nothing is more powerful than a woman who can leave with dignity. When a man knows you are not afraid to lose him, he understands that your presence is not guaranteed. He knows your love is not something he can take for granted. That awareness produces respect. Respect produces value. Value produces desire. He realizes that you are not holding on out of fear. You are staying because it is right. And that is the most compelling reason someone could ever have to remain in a relationship. Emotional independence does not mean you don't care. It means you care deeply without abandoning yourself. It means you can love without surrendering your identity. It means you can be vulnerable without becoming powerless. It means you can give without draining your soul dry. It means you can feel without losing your balance. A woman who is emotionally independent is not hard or cold. She's soft without being breakable, strong without being guarded. She has learned that attachment without self-awareness becomes addiction, and she refuses to confuse addiction with love. She knows that needing someone to survive is not romance, it's captivity, and she chooses freedom in love because freedom is the only soil where real connection can grow. A man will always be drawn to a woman who doesn't collapse into him, but grows beside him, someone who adds to his life instead of absorbing it. Someone who expands his world instead of shrinking her own. Someone who inspires him to rise instead of enabling him to fall. That is the kind of woman who stays on a man's mind forever. Not through force, not through games, but through depth. Because depth cannot be replaced. Depth cannot be forgotten. Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." A woman who has looked inside herself is awakened to her own power. She no longer chases love externally. She creates it internally and then chooses who is worthy to share it with. And when a man experiences love from a woman who is awakened, he knows he has encountered something rare, something that cannot be replicated or substituted. Because most people love from fear, fear of being alone, fear of abandonment, fear of inadequacy. But a woman who loves from fullness loves differently, without desperation, without possession, without insecurity. A love that demands nothing yet inspires everything. She doesn't need constant reassurance. She doesn't treat affection like currency. She gives because she wants to, not because she is bargaining for emotional safety. She stays because she chooses to, not because she is trapped in fear. And that love is unforgettable. A woman like this becomes a mirror. She reflects a man's potential back to him. She challenges him to grow simply by existing at that level of strength. She raises the standard not with rules but with example. She awakens him without lecturing. She influences without control. She inspires without pressure. Being with her feels like possibility, like a door opening. Being without her feels like something valuable is missing. He remembers the sound of her laugh. He remembers the power of her silence. He remembers the softness in her vulnerability. He remembers the certainty in her boundaries. He remembers the way she made him want to become better without ever asking him to. Because the energy of a whole woman elevates everything around her. She becomes the standard he can't forget, the benchmark no one else reaches. Not because she was perfect, but because she was real. Real leaves an imprint. Real stays long after the body is gone. That is the secret no one tells you. You stay on his mind when you stop trying to, when you stop performing, when you stop proving, when you stop shrinking, when you stop chasing, when you become the fullest expression of who you are. Because a woman fully expressed is unforgettable. A woman who knows her worth is unforgettable. A woman who chooses herself is unforgettable. A woman who is warm but boundaried, full but unattached, unpredictable but grounded, Emotionally independent but deeply loving, she becomes rare, and rarity is irreplaceable. The truth is, you don't stay on a man's mind by trying to earn a place there. You stay because your presence changed something in him. Not because you begged to be remembered, but because you lived in a way that could not be forgotten. You don't occupy his thoughts because you demanded attention. You occupy them because your energy redefined what connection meant. You don't stay because you clung tight. You stay because your absence is felt. The women who stay on a man's mind forever aren't trying to. They are too busy living, too busy growing, too busy expanding, too busy building, too busy becoming. And in that process of becoming, they become unforgettable. So become her. Not for him, for you. Because the moment you stop trying to be memorable, you become impossible to forget. If this message spoke to your soul, don't leave without doing something powerful for yourself. Hit subscribe, tap the like button, and share this with another woman who needs to hear it right now. Your voice matters. Drop a comment below telling me one thing. You're choosing for yourself today.